Good morning, happy Thursday, and welcome to We Can and We Will TV. And my guest today is the wonderful Colm O'Brien, who I had the privilege of meeting, oh gosh, it must be 2 or 3 years ago now, when I first got my nerves up to ask somebody I didn't know, but I had watched on social media, and I got the courage up to ask him to come and speak at one of my nearly very first events. And what he didn't know until last week was the difference that made to me was just huge, because it takes courage to reach out, and I'm not one for asking for help. So when I reached out this particular day and asked for help, and when somebody like Colm O'Brien, who I would really see as super successful, I'm going to add this on so you can request. When he said yes and he came along and he was a true gentleman and he delivered an amazing talk, it really boosted my confidence at a very vital and young stage in business. So Colm, I'm not sure if you're watching there because it's not allowing me to see, and it's not showing me whether there's any viewers coming on. However, I have turned on that you can ask to be invited into the broadcast. So if you can see somewhere where you can invite yourself on and then I can accept, that would be perfect. Yeah, as I said, I'm on the phone here, so I can't even check my messages. Let me see. There's somebody giving me a thumbs up. Let me just check if I can do that again. Yeah. It's saying no viewers yet, although you're here, Colm. Oh, there you go. Let me see. Bring Colm O'Brien on camera. Yay! We're getting better at this. We're getting better at this. You just have to accept now, Colm, and then you're here beside me on the chair. Let me just move this over here so put you beside me. So it's saying that it's adding. Good morning. Good afternoon now.
Top of the afternoon. How are you all?
All good, and sound is good, and you've even brought in the sunshine. I love it.
I decided to do this al fresco. I hope that's okay with everybody.
That is perfect. Sure, look, you're bringing in the
Such a
sunshine for
beautiful
everybody.
day. Such a beautiful day. So forgive me now. The light isn't great, but hey, we figured it out. There we go. There we go.
There you
How's it
go.
going?
All
Lovely
good,
to see you,
all
Amanda.
good. Thank you for accepting the invitation to come on to my new TV show. I'm calling this We Can and We Will TV. Go me.
Oprah's getting worried.
This is actually one of my ideas that's taken me a bit longer to put into play. Normally I have an idea that's instantaneously, but this one, I suppose with everything else going on in my life, this one just took a little bit longer to get out the gates. But all good things come to those who wait. So
yeah, fantastic. Well, this is lovely to be on. Let me just explain why I'm here. This is a place in Bird Hill, County Tipperary. It's called the Old Barracks Coffee Roastery. A friend of mine has it. Been putting it together for the last. We actually had the 1-year anniversary on Sunday, an anniversary party. So you can see the River Shannon in the background. It's absolutely stunning.
Stunning.
And so I had a couple of meetings here earlier, and I thought, you know what, rather than rushing away home, I'd stay out in the sunshine. So I hope that's okay with everybody. So Amanda, thanks for inviting me on.
You're very welcome. I was just filling them in on our little story that you kind of only found out last week of how our kindness, we never know how our kindness can affect other people, and especially in business. And I'm always talking to new business owners, beginners. You know, I was very much new to networking, and I think people presumed I was always networking. And when I reached out to you, it was very nerve-wracking for me to actually ask for help, and two, ask a stranger. And for me, the caliber of your success, you know, we have this stuff in our mindset. It's like, it's huge. But you really gave me, you know, the hope, and you just instilled in me that it doesn't matter what people's success looks like. People are kind. And when you ask, many people are there to help us. We keep ourselves stuck.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, well, I really didn't know that at the time, so thanks for sharing that. And I'd never have thought that of you, and I'd never have thought that you thought that of me. So I was just delighted somebody reached out and wanted me to talk to anybody, right? And but your group is just fantastic, and to see it blossom over the last number of years is just inspiring. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank
you've
you.
really gathered a great nucleus around you. So continued success. And then for you to reach out and ask me would I come on this morning and have a chat, delighted to. And so long as you don't mind me doing it al fresco, and as long as you can hear me,
I told you we're going to see you indoors next week at We Can and We Will. So if anybody wants to meet Colm next week, Next Wednesday evening, we have We Can and We Will Talk. And again, Colm is going to come up and share some of his wisdom with you. But we're going to get into the interview because people are probably dying to hear what you have to say about business and how you can help them. So my first question is to you is, how long, I love your story, how long have you been in business? Tell us a little bit about your backstory.
All right, so I wanted to be a school teacher back in the day. Northside Dublin originally, wanted to be a school teacher. Didn't get the honour in Irish to get into teacher training college back in 1980. And so I ended up falling into the restaurant industry and worked in Cleary's department store in the restaurant there for years. Ilac Centre, I'm sure you all know that, for years.
Yeah.
And then I joined Bewley's Cafes and stayed for 10 years working with Bewley's Cafes. Used to manage Bewley's in Grafton Street for a period. That was a highlight of my career. Then I became the franchise manager for that brand, and that took me outside the pale. And I moved to Limerick 22 years ago, 1998. Is this? Oh yeah, 22 years ago, June last month, and took on the Bewley's franchise in Limerick, and it went really well for a few years, and then it failed. It fell off a cliff with the Celtic Tiger rents. Our rent in our coffee shop in Limerick went to €1,000 a day. If any of your listeners there are paying rent and giving out about it, I don't think there are many of them paying €1,000 per day. And rent, all rent does is gives you the opportunity to open your door and start trading. Right? So that put us out of business effectively. But I stumbled into school meals. I met the man on the train. I'll be telling that story next week.
Brilliant! That's how I met. That's how we met. That's what connected
Yeah.
me. I was like, "That's a super story. You
So,
have to come next week, guys. You have to hear this story."
I'm not gonna tell that story today.
No.
Yeah. But that was a pivotal moment, and that's actually why we're talking today, because of that man on the train. But if you want to hear the man on the train story, lads, you got to turn up next week.
You have to. Oh, you have to. Oh my God, it's just super exciting, and it's a story of hope. It's a story of. It's just so it covers so much. That story is just a powerful, powerful story. So what made you decide? What made you decide to go from working for Bewley's to taking on a franchise, to actually owning, your own business essentially?
I began to study. My dad was always employed, an employee all his life, and my mum always worked from home. Mother of five, typical regular family. And but I began to ask myself, how did some people get ahead in life, and how come others stayed stuck? So I began to study business principles. I got involved in network marketing way back then, and the one thing I took from it, and I'll always promote it as an entry step for some people like me into the world of business, gave me some confidence.
You and me both. Like, network marketing's changed my life.
Yeah, same here. But the biggest thing I got from it was the ability to handle rejection, and the importance of reading books and listening to people who are further ahead in their journey. So that's what changed my life. And I began to study business principles, ask myself, how come some people get ahead? How come some don't? Robert Kiyosaki had a huge influence on me. The books Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that series, the second one, Cash Flow Quadrant, explained the difference between the self-employed individual and the business owner. And I realized then, over a period of time, I didn't want to be employed and I didn't want to be self-employed. So if that was the case, I had to figure out how to be either an investor or a business owner. And I've no money, so I decided I'd learn how to be a business owner, right? I'd put in sweat equity. And so over the last 15 years now, 21 years ago, stepped out 21 years ago. And now Carambola's going well, thank God, 150 people working, which is great. And it's been an exciting journey, 15 years on. And now this whole business coaching has been derived from that.
Yeah. So what's been your biggest challenge in business to date? What would you say has been your biggest challenge?
I think the failure of the first business. Nobody steps into business for it to fail. Nobody starts a business for it to fail. Nobody takes up a job for it not to work out. And I think from the moment I stepped out of the comfort zone, relative comfort zone of the paycheck, a friend of mine here refers to it as the fur-lined mousetrap. I think it's a great phrase, right? Fur-lined mousetrap. There's a weekly paycheck. It's very comfortable. It's warm and cozy, right? It's just not necessarily.
Yeah, it's coming. Yeah.
No, it's coming. Yeah. So stepping out of that was the hardest thing I did. I remember the first day, even though I'd been running cafes for other people for donkey's years, the first day I was scared stiff in my own cafe. I knew exactly what to do, but all of a sudden, there was no daddy behind me, our boss behind me. So that was difficult, but the most difficult thing was when the cafe failed, right? And we knew it was going to fail. We knew in 2002 we got a rent review up to €1,000 a day. That was it, game over. And so I had to reinvent. And I think that was the worst moment and the best moment, because it was my absolute nightmare coming true. Absolute nightmare. What's going to happen if this thing goes down? And it did go down. But I also believe that I became a man through that
I was going to
process.
say, how did you overcome it? What was the outcome of that challenge?
Well, the outcome was we're sitting here today, right, which is great. But I think the outcome was that I began to believe in myself. I was fearful until that moment, um, and I realized I had to reinvent. And ladies and gentlemen, we've all got to reinvent all the time, because the one constant in life is change. The world is
Change.
changing around us, and if we don't adapt to it, we'll be extinct, right? So we got to keep changing. For me, it was a very tough time, but one of the things that I've learned is we've got to have our eye on a point in the future where we say, I'd like my life to look like that, whatever that is, at a point in the
Mm-hmm.
future. I always use, if I may put this out there, I always use your next significant birthday, on your next significant birthday, and a significant birthday always has a 5 or a 0. So for you, it'd be, when you're 25, Amanda, right?
Yes, I knew I liked you for a reason.
There you go. So on your 25th birthday, the question is, what does life look like for you on that day? It's a very specific ask.
Mm.
And I get people to craft a story for that day. And then that gives them a direction. And then they start making all their decisions around career and business and relationships and health towards that vision. If people don't know where they're headed, they'll
Yes.
do what I did for donkey's years, which is they'll just drive around,
You,
drive
round and
faster and
round. Aim
harder
at, aim at nothing and you'll hit it all day,
every time,
every day.
all day, every day.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And
Nobody wants to be that type of winner.
no, no, no. So it's about knowing what success looks like for you, because it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
monetary, right? It's not about riches per se, right? Knowing what success looks like for you, knowing and then taking steps in that direction, and then you evaluate everything that comes your way in the meantime against that vision. Does this take me closer, or does it take me
Yeah.
further away?
I'm always saying that. Are you rolling closer or are you going backwards?
Mm.
So finding clients is something that most new business owners struggle with.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I know everybody's business is different, but have you any top tips for finding clients? This is something that comes up with my clients a lot. It's like, my customers love me, my clients love me, but how do I find new clients?
Are we talking school meals or coaching?
Whatever. In business in general, I think,
Okay.
there's a lot of ways to prospect and a lot of ways to find clients. So what's your top two tips, top three tips?
All right. My dad was in sales all his life, right? And he worked for other companies most of his life. And he actually only worked for two companies really long term. But he said, and it's a great phrase, he said, in his world, it's very simple. The more calls you make, the more orders you take. Very simple maths, right? If you reach out to three people, will you make a sale? Probably not. Probably not. If you reach out to 3,000 people, will you make a sale? No matter how bad you are, you're likely to make a sale, right? So the challenge for most people is they're trying to hit a hole in one. Even people starting their own business, they're thinking, right, I've started my business now, and 3 years on, it's not working. And do you know what? It might not work. They might have to pivot and change. I don't play golf, but you're familiar with the hole in one analogy.
Yeah.
How many people take a shot off the tee and it lands in the hole first time, bullseye? Very, very, very few, right? So why are we expecting that next phone call we make
Yeah.
to land a sale? Forget about it.
Was it
Play the
Jim
numbers
Rohn
game.
that says, I make up for numbers what I lack in skill?
Well, it might have been Jim, but it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Play
Yeah.
the numbers game. I did a blog last year sometime. He who collects the most no's wins.
Yes,
It,
there's a
it
book called Go for No. It's an excellent little book. And it's like instead of going for yeses, go for no
go
and
for no.
celebrate your no's. You'll
Absolutely.
win.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And if let's if you take it for example, let's say you make a sale and it's worth €1,000 to you, the sale, right? Whatever, right?
Hmm.
Whatever you're selling, a course or a program or whatever. So you make a sale, it's worth €1,000. But let's say you have to make 100 phone calls to get 20 meetings to get 3 second meetings to make that one sale, right? So think about that for a second. Every
Yeah.
phone call was worth a tenner.
Yeah.
Every phone call was worth a tenner, and until you made the 100 phone calls, you weren't going to crystallize the €1,000. So you got
Yeah.
to turn it into a game. He collects the most no's wins.
Wins.
Okay,
Yeah.
and it is collect the no's, collect the no's, collect the no's, and in a funny sort of way, when you're collecting no's, the yeses get in the way.
Yeah.
You're on
Do,
a
do, do
roll.
you know, I'm just going to fire this at you. Do you feel, because this is something that I've come across, is that sometimes success can be your failure? Because when you get the yeses, you think, oh, I've arrived. So
Yeah,
feels lovely. Now
sorted.
I'm a
Yeah,
new client. I'm going to stop sowing seeds. I'm
yeah,
always saying it. You got to keep sowing when you're reaping, because there
completely.
come a time to harvest. There's nothing to harvest because you've been too busy over here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it is a funnel, and we got to keep up the prospecting. Prospecting is probably it's a phrase we use, but
Building relationships.
yeah, absolutely. We've got to stop selling and start serving, in my opinion,
Yeah,
right? Making
me
ourselves
too.
available to be of service to people, and those that want to work with us will find us, and we'll work with them, and we'll build some long-term relationships. But it's an
Yeah.
absolute funnel, absolute funnel. If you put three people in the top of the funnel, you know what? Stop. You might as well stop because it's not going to work.
Yeah. 2025 in the funnel, at least.
Yeah, come here, absolutely.
And the rest. So where am I here now? Okay, we have that one. What has been your how have you found social media? Because obviously if you're been in business for that length of time and then social media arrives, and I know you have embraced your social media. So
Right.
how has that made a difference to you in your
I
business
thought
career?
I thought you were going to say, and you being a dinosaur column, how's that working, right?
You're a young
Well,
man.
I'm level 56, so I'm mid 50s, right? And I'm excited about life. And I haven't embraced social media the way others have, but I've embraced it enough for me for now. We said earlier, the one constant in life is change. The world has changed, and there's no point in you and I, uh, uh, using 20th century technology in the century that we're in at the moment, or 21st century. Are we in the 22nd century now? I'm not never quite sure. So social media is real. It's not going anywhere. Our audience lives there. Okay, and
Everybody has a smartphone. Yeah.
absolutely, and if our audience currently doesn't live there, the generation that's coming up next will live there. So one of my favorite sayings, Wayne Gretzky, Hall of Famer ice hockey player, he was asked how he became so successful, and he said, "I learned to skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it has been." So we've got to learn to skate to where the puck is going to be, and the puck is going in the social media world, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
And we've got to embrace it and get comfortable with it, or fall behind. One challenge I think I know I face is we tend to think we've got to do all this stuff ourselves. I'm very good at certain aspects of my business, my coaching business, and very good at aspects of the Carambola business, but I'm not a master of all of them. And I've been very good in Carambola. The reason Carambola is 150 employees because I've been very good at letting go to people who are better at me in that space. And at the end of the day, Amanda, we only get paid for income producing work. Income producing work for you might be coaching a client or doing a speaking gig, right? We don't
Yeah.
get paid for the hours of social media that goes under the hood. And we've got to ask ourselves, are we better off outsourcing that to somebody who's expert in that field? Right? We've got to be open to that possibility, even if there's very little funds coming in. When Carambola started all those years ago, I didn't, as we grew our business slowly, I never paid myself anymore. I hired somebody, and I hired somebody, and I hired somebody, and I hired somebody, and I hired somebody because I was building a business. I never wanted to be self-employed. And in this coaching sphere, I want to build a business. My challenge is at the moment there's very little funds coming in. You've talked about it in your work, how to create a sustainable income working with clients. That's
Yeah.
hugely valuable to people. But
Yeah.
to do that, we've got to stay in the space of working where the income is being produced and not getting busy thinking we're flat out doing stuff under the hood that's not producing income.
I love it.
Hope that helps.
I love it. That's a mistake. It is a mistake. There's so
Huge.
much to be done in a business, so much to be done. But there's always
Mm,
somebody who can do it better than you. And when you do the sales maths, probably cheaper than you.
completely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's not paying you to do that. So what has been your most success? Do you run a system? Of course you have a system. 150 staff.
May I comment on that? May I comment on that?
Jim.
We need three things, in my opinion and in my experience, to build a sustainable business, right? Any of us can go out and you know, get a van and go wash windows if we choose to, right? And that's, in other words, we can be self-employed. We can go out there, make our service available, and work morning to night and earn a few bob. Of course we can, right?
Yeah. Give
Building a
yourself a
business,
job.
absolutely. Building a business is completely different to being self-employed. And too many people think, oh, I'm self-employed now, I'm in business for myself. Forgive me for saying it. No, you're not. You've just got yourself a job. You employ yourself, right? So to build a business, you need three things, okay? You need a brand of some sort. Okay, we can and we will is a brand. Colm O'Brien Motivation is a brand. Carambola is a brand. Nike is a brand. McDonald's is a brand. The Old Barracks Coffee Roastery is a brand. And a brand is a promise. A brand is, it gives you an expectation. I walk into Beauties of Grafton Street, I know what to expect. And it either delivers on the promise or it doesn't, okay? And you deliver on the promise of a brand with systems, my dear, right? Which is your thing, right? So we must have systems so we get consistency into that promise. And then we need to attract wonderful people. So the three things to have a sustainable business: a good brand, which is a promise, and the promise is delivered consistently through great systems, and those systems are implemented through wonderful people who bought into the mission. And so
Love it.
endeth the
Love
lesson.
it. Yeah. So my last and final question for you is, what has been your most successful achievement to date?
Oh God, well, that's a toughie. Don't we have to define success?
Well, for you, for Colm O'Brien. Any
Um,
area of your life. Doesn't even have
yeah,
to be
yeah,
your business.
yeah. No, I met a gentleman just now, literally before I finished with him to come on with you, and thank you for the invitation. And we were talking about success for him, and he said, you know, he's got some challenges in his business world, his career life, as we all have at times. And he said, you know, I've got a great family support, so he's feeling particularly successful, right? I think for me, knowing how I'm wired, I think it has been, I've enjoyed my career, if you like, going from starting work 40 odd years ago into becoming self-employed, even though I never wanted to be self-employed, in 1998 into that first business, and then learning how to have a business fail and come back, and then to build something which is significant. You know, 150 employees is not an insignificant business. So I think if I've got anything to be somewhat proud of, is it's having stayed the course to learn how to put a business together. Because you see, once Carambola, please God, will last forever. But if it doesn't, I've enough experience to take that and replicate it, if that makes sense. And I'm building Colm O'Brien Motivation no more than you are. We can and we will. We're going to build those into business systems that will benefit many other people.
Absolutely. That's it. It's leaving the legacy. Leaving the
Uh-huh.
legacy of Colm O'Brien. You know, there'd be many kids that be talking about those school lunches and the next generation and the next generation. It's never about just us. It's what are you building that'll
The, the,
pass
the, meet,
on and pass
the,
on.
the meeting I've had two meetings here this morning. Hard life, by the way, and the weather we're having, right?
I'm
And
telling you now. It's
yeah,
a bit like
shocking.
my meeting at the back yesterday. Like I went to bed last night and he's like, "You're scalded." I was like, "I know, I never put cream on."
And what was he colouring in at the time, by the way?
Oh, he's really got a bee in his bonnet. That was about
Ooh,
2 years ago I said that.
yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one. Anyway, I was I met this lady earlier this morning, and we were chatting about the work that we all do. And I would consider myself, I wanted to be a teacher. It's interesting that I believe now to be a teacher, I'm educating another generation, albeit
Yes.
different to what I expected. Anyway, but I talk about it in terms of it being 100-year work, right? And the reason I say that is because, you know, we're on our journeys, right? And we're learning stuff, and then you and I and others out there are happy to share what we're learning. Here's something I learned, it might be of interest to you. And Warren Buffett talks about the Ovarian Lottery. Now, I happen to have been born to parents in Dublin in the 1960s, right, who were married, right? But somebody else out there might have been born into, or they might know their dad or whatever. I don't know what the circumstance. But that's the Ovarian Lottery, right? So people start off, and society would tend to say, well, if you started here, you're going to end up there. There's a lot of judgment goes on, right? A lot of the work we do in Carambola is in areas of disadvantage around the country. And there's, if you like, an expectation that not a lot's going to happen for some of those kids, unfortunately, right? So you take the type of work that we're doing, and we're out there sharing with people what we've learned on our journey. And I liken that to a bump in the road. So Johnny's on or Mary's on a particular path, and their predestiny is there, wherever there is, right? And if nothing changes, that's where they'll end up. And then they bump into Amanda, right? And Amanda says, have you ever thought of life like this? And there's this slight nudge, and Johnny goes away all confused for a bit, right? And then he starts thinking about it, and he says, okay, what Amanda said made sense. And he goes off on a slightly different trajectory, and he reads a book, right? Or watches a YouTube video that you've recommended, and his thinking begins to change. And he continues that for 25 years, right? He ends up 25 years from there in a very different place. Does that make sense to you? Completely.
Come here, I get it all the time. Like people like yourself, when I reached out to you, you have no idea what that meant. We have no idea what impact we have in the world when we share. And, you know, sharing is caring and being kind to people. That one compliment, that one word can spark off something that you may never even find out that you had anything to do with.
Most of the time we won't.
That's my mission, is to spark off whatever and let people go on and, you know, change their path.
And the point is, 25 years from now, Johnny's or Mary's thinking is so different that they've arrived in a different place than they would have had they not met you. And then their influence starts there and goes on for another generation. Their kids look at life differently because of the work you did. And then their kids, so this is 100-year work. We've no idea where it's going to lead. None. Yeah. And we won't be around to enjoy it. But hey, let's enjoy the journey in the meantime.
Yes, enjoy the now. Enjoy the now. Colm O'Brien, it has been fantastic. Thank you for bringing the sunshine into my Thursday morning. And we look forward to hearing the man on the train next Wednesday evening at We Can and We Will Talk. So if you're not sure what, I put the link for We Can and We Will Talk in here. But we have people that travel from all over. I'm so blessed and humbled. We have people that travel from Limerick every single 6 weeks. Drogheda, Galway, Sligo, they come from everywhere. And this is still, at the minute, a complimentary event. So come along, bring some friends. You'll get the warmest welcome you'll get anywhere. And just have a fun few hours. Huh?
Can you say, isn't it nearly full, 80+ souls in the room?
There's nearly 90 now. Nearly 90 registered, yes.
Happy days. I'll have to bring my game face.
Do you know what? You'll never meet a nicer, warmer, friendlier, more supportive audience. We don't do BS at We Can and We Will. We only do welcome and friendly. And it's a bit like when you go to your auntie's house and the first time they make a fuss at you and the second time they're like, put the kettle on yourself. We Can and We Will is a bit like that. The first time we'll mind you, we'll introduce you to people, and after that you're the host. Everybody minds everybody else. It's so cool. It really is. And that feeling is there when you come in, that it's not my event, it's not your event, it's everybody's event, and we all make it happen.
Congratulations to you on, you know, when I met you a few years ago, and it was a small select group in the, not the plaza, where was it? Red Cow indeed, and look what it's turned into, you know.
Yeah.
Happy days. All right.
Blessed. Right, go on, take care. Thank you.
See you
soon.
Thanks for having me on. Take it easy.
Bye.
Bye.